Happy Thursday, everyone. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Sprint TV, where I sit down and try as quickly as I possibly can to give you some great tips and pointers on how to make the most out of your Run-Free project platform and your online presence in general without spending any more money and getting a great return on investment. Now, full disclosure, guys, if you can't tell by the sound of my voice, I'm feeling, let's say, extremely under the weather. I'm highly medicated, and so if this thing goes completely off the rails and I start speaking in tongues, please don't be surprised. Also, shout out to Millennium Running for the dope hat. Thanks, guys. Today, what we're going to talk about is how your Run-Free mobile app is a golden goose. And what I mean by that is that your Run-Free app is the best tool that you have for driving engagement for your customers. And what I'd like to do first is touch on a little background to get us to where that statement makes sense to everyone. Because I think in a lot of cases, folks see these apps simply as a souped up e-commerce store sitting on someone's phone, and it's far, far more than that. First, let me ask, what is the number one goal of any kind of engagement that you do, whether that's social media, online engagement, standing out in front of your store, shaking hands with folks and introducing them, or throwing events, right? What is it? The number one goal is, of course, to get feet through the front door. And everything that you do revolves around that, up to and including e-commerce and your online presence. And so this is where I'd like to take a moment and have a conversation about a very, very common misconception in the space about e-commerce and online presence in general. A lot of folks see e-commerce as a standalone rather than as an enabler of their business. In other words, I've heard folks come to me and say, hey, listen, I'm only doing 4-5% of my business online. I'm trying to decide whether e-commerce is worth it or not. And of course, the answer, and of course, as a e-commerce software provider, you can trust me, but look these numbers up yourself. But the answer is that absolutely it's worth it, because in this day and age, if you don't have an e-commerce presence that is representative of what someone can expect in your store, then you're really missing out on a huge point of engagement. To back that up, let's look through some statistics that came from a survey of 46,000 retail shoppers surveyed by the Harvard Review. First, 73% of this 46,000, and I can't do math right now, so you'll have to do it yourself, engaged multiple channels before making a buying decision. And what that means is they either went online to see if somebody had something in their store and then walked through the front door and made that purchase, or they stopped by the store, saw something that they liked, and then went online and made that purchase. 73%. 7% purchased online only. That means a very small fraction of people who made buying decisions actually purchased just online without visiting the store. And the remaining 20% went to the store only. Now, if we kind of back out a little bit and think about some demographic differences that we have in this in these survey respondents, we have millennials and Gen Z who, essentially 1981, born 1981 and forward, are digital natives. They tend to use multi-channel, meaning they go online first before they walk into a store, or they go into a store to try something on, for example, and then buy things online in huge numbers, 68%. And then the baby boomers, which is the older generation, has a very different view of the online experience and shopping in general. 84% prefer to walk into a store and make a purchase. Regardless, even though we have those two very different shopping models and experiences between two very different demographics, 87% of all shoppers reported looking online for product availability before visiting the store. So, what does that actually mean? That means that your e-commerce presence secures at least 73 and as much as 87% of your revenue by enabling your customers to engage through their channel of choice. And if you're an average performer, thanks to the RIA and upper quadrant, it gives you about a 5.33% bump in revenue by itself. Now, there is a bell curve of performance. What you're looking at right now are the monthly cadence benchmark numbers from Upper Quadrant and the Running Industry Association for the past year. You can see big jumps towards the October-November timeframe as one would expect, but generally speaking, 5.73% of online transactions, 5.73% of total transactions are online, and 5.33% of total revenue is online. Now, what do these numbers tell us? A, we as an industry have some polishing that we can certainly do, because generally speaking in retail, the average falls between 10% and 20%. But this is an industry that was built on the brick and mortar experience, and so it's reasonable to expect this number to be a little bit lower. The other is that these numbers are so close to one another, 5.73% and 5.33%. What that means is that the people who are shopping online are buying the exact same stuff that the people who are shopping in store are buying. In other words, your online customers are your in-store customers and vice versa. It also means that in our industry, the bell curve of performance lands the majority of stores between the 11 and 15% of revenue online range. So if you are an average performer, it also means that you have the opportunity to increase revenues by 10% and engage your customers even further. So what am I getting at, and why does all this stuff matter? It matters because I want to drive home the idea that everything you do to engage your customers in one channel affects everything that happens in another channel. A good online presence is going to result in better online sales, but more in-store sales as well. An active social media account, excuse me, I'm so sorry, is going to give followers a better sense of community, and it's going to drive them to your events and into your store because it gives them a sense of knowing who you are. Your job as the store owner is to blur the lines between these channels being e-commerce, your app, your social media accounts, and standing in store events, such that when I, as the customer, look at your Facebook page or stand on your showroom floor or attend your Saturday morning 5K or shop with you online, I get as similar of an experience between them as I possibly can. And in order to accomplish that, you have to have a well-executed marketing strategy. And a well-executed marketing strategy begins with the goal of maximizing engagement into the channel of customer's choice. So what I mean by that is, when you maximize engagement, you're talking about online, in-store, to your events, broadly speaking. The more touch points you can have with the potential customer and give them a glimpse of who you are, the higher the likelihood is that they're going to think about you when they're making a buying decision and or participate in your events. So interestingly enough, some channels are far more intuitive than others. So if you look at social media, it's super duper intuitive. Of course, everybody goes on social media, especially in our space. Most of the stores have a really fantastic social media presence. You tell your stories very well, super duper active, really get the picture of who you are out there on social media, because social media is an intuitive platform. It's there for storytelling. Email is another method for engaging the customers, and this is, of course, the common, tried and true, trusted version of customer engagement. And everyone for the most part, does a really killer job at getting engaging emails out to the folks who have, of course, signed up to engage with them. Apps and notifications from apps are another way to engage customers, and there is, generally speaking, very little best practices data around how best to use apps to engage folks. And that's why I'm here today, is to give you some pointers and best practices around your app to make sure that you're using it to get the best return on your investment. Now, before we jump further, I think you may be surprised, and I'm going to take myself off the screen here for a second so you can see these numbers, at the average engagement rates of each of these platforms, if I can get them to work. So when we say engagement rate, what we mean is when someone scrolls past, they stop and read and or click on any given post, or when someone receives an email, they open it and click a link, or when someone receives a push notification, they engage with that push notification by opening it on their phone. You'll probably notice that you have about a 310x increase in potential engagement using push notifications over posting on Instagram, and you have about a 10x increase in potential engagement from traditional email marketing by using push notifications. The best part about this system is, first of all, it doesn't cost you anything to send push notifications once you're a run-free app subscriber. And second of all, you have a system that incentivizes your customers to engage with you. And so 20% doesn't include a system of incentives. What I mean by that is, when someone engages with one of your push notifications, you may be offering to give them loyalty points for some action that they could take. And those loyalty points are as good as cash in a lot of cases. You may be giving them the opportunity to add mileage to their mileage count in order to receive a special gift from you guys at the store, or something along those lines. And those incentives drive up engagement further. Interestingly enough, what we have found is, old habits die hard and new habits are hard to establish, right? So everyone does such a great job of posting online and a really great job of email, but we don't see the level of engagement with apps that one would think with a return like this from an engagement perspective. So I'm going to give you the rundown of really the sort of top things to start with to maximize your engagement when it comes to the app. The first is send everyone to your app. Everyone, everywhere. Remember, the goal is to get as many people to sign up for that app and have that real estate on their phone as possible. The more you put on the app that's useful to your customer, the higher the likelihood is that they're going to engage. In other words, stick it right there on the front of your website and put links to the Apple Store and Google Play directly so that people can download. Have tent cards up in the store, at the register, and all over the place. Offer incentives to people to scan a QR code, download your app while they're standing there in the store so that they can start to collect loyalty points for their purchases that day. Use it at events. Make sure that when anyone comes to attend any event that you're a part of, that they need to use the app to check in, for example. It's super simple to do. You scan a QR code, it takes care of all the back-end stuff for you, so it'll be far more convenient for your runners and far more convenient for you too. And oh, by the way, you now have real estate on the phone of every single one of those people that engaged in that event. And finally, on social media. Maybe not every social media post, but certainly most of your social media posts, you should call people to action to download your app. In the end, your app is the connective tissue between all of the different channels of experience that your customer can possibly have with you. So as long as you're sending everyone you possibly can to your app, then you're on the right track. Step 2 is use the news. This one is the one that I see most egregiously broken, and it kills me every time. When I'm helping stores out and I go into their app and I see that there's no news at all, it breaks my heart a little bit. Every social media post can be a news post on the app. It's super duper simple to do. It takes less time than making an Instagram post, and your customers who have downloaded your app for whatever reason want to know what's going on with you. If you're selling art or making art to support Ukraine, or if you're cleaning up along the roadside or whatever it is, the more stories you tell through the places that your customers engage, the better off everybody's going to be. Every single social media post should become a news post. And we'll talk a little bit more about notifications and best practices here in a few minutes, but these news posts can be set to expire. Your app should be full of them, because as soon as your customer clicks on that app, of course you would love for them to shop, but you also want them to see a snapshot of exactly who you as your store brand are, and what you're doing today right there. Because the likelihood that they're going to engage with you on social media is 0.064%. You have a substantially higher likelihood of them reading about the things that you're doing to support Ukraine, or whatever it is that you're planning on, that you're doing as members of the community in your app, than you would on social media. So use the news. The third is anything can be an event. And this is super duper important. It's incredibly easy to create events for your app on the Run Free platform. And I've seen some really crazy stuff that people do as events that's really awesome. You can set it so that people can check in anywhere they are. So it could be a virtual event. Just check in with us this afternoon for 10 points. It could be that simple, right? Or it could be something like you see here on screen, where it's food trucks. As long as you're within a quarter-mile radius of the address that's listed there, you can check into the event and get loyalty points. Again, you're incentivizing people to engage with you. Speakers in the store. If you have a special guest speaker, if you're running a sale, you can turn that sale into an event. 50% off all the summer stuff, now that it's fall as of yesterday, which is completely bananas. That can be an event, and you can incentivize people for checking in when they get to your store. A series of events can turn into a scavenger hunt, which is a really cool concept that a couple of people have done. And meet the staff. If somebody new has joined the team, have them in there for donuts and coffee on a Saturday morning, and invite folks who use the app to come in, get a couple of points for cruising by the store, meeting everybody. And again, the whole concept here is feet in the door, maximum engagement, and also providing value for your app. The fact that there's e-commerce inside of that app should be the very last thing that your customers think about when they tap on your logo. What they should think about when they tap on your logo is what's happening at any store USA right now, today, what's going on, and they should receive that information as soon as they open it. So anything can be an event. Finally, and this is the second most important part. Most important part is getting everybody to download your app. The second most important part here is to tie it all together with push notifications. So like I mentioned before, non-incentive based push notifications on average bring about a 20% engagement rate, which is 10x more than email in the retail space, and 310x more than social media in the retail space. And as long as you maximize the number of signups by exposing everyone you possibly can to your app, use the news every single day, replicate what you've got on social media. You guys are doing a fantastic job on social media. It's not reinventing the wheel, it's just adding it in one more spot. Give your social media manager a login to Run Free. They can do it themselves. It takes a couple of seconds. You're getting creative with what you call events. Once you do those three things, the notification side of things gets really, really easy really quickly. So I just realized that I haven't been on the camera this entire time, but hopefully you can see my Intergalactic Running Company store. I wanted to talk about notifications and some best practices there before we jump and I lay back down, because I'm feeling a little crazy and medicated at the moment. So when we think about notifications, less is more to some extent, and you really want to think about how notifications are going to be consumed by your customer. So if you go into your Run Free dashboard and you click on loyalty and you go over here to notifications, you'll see that you have a few settings that are automatically set. First, this news post section here, if you turn this on, every single time you post a piece of news while this is on, all of your app users are going to get a push notification with the title of that news article. Kind of dangerous. To me, if you're using your news the way you're supposed to be using your news, this should be off most of the time. Event check-in reminders. If you do a ton of events, I would consider turning this off, maybe only turning it on for major events. What this says is, hey everybody, we have this event. It sends a push notification to every single one of your users that says, hey, we have this event in some period of time. And it can be, as recent as 1 hour prior to the event happening and as far back as 1 week prior to the event. If you only do a couple of events a quarter or something like that, then leaving this on may be just fine. But my suggestion from a best practices perspective, so that you don't abuse the push notification system, is to turn these off. Rewards level achievements and miles level achievements, these are individualized for your runners. That means that whenever one of your customers hits a certain number of rewards and they hit one of your milestones, they're going to get a push notification that says, you have 100 rewards points, congratulations, welcome to the next level. Same thing with miles. You've run 100 miles, congratulations, you're now a undergrad, or whatever you want to call it. And you can, as most of you know, you can set various calls to action up in the mileage section as well. But what I wanted to talk about here is this new notification area. So using push notifications creatively and as powerfully as you possibly can, you can send any message you want to every single one of your app users at any point in time. My suggestion would be that if you have major news, to schedule a notification to go out to everybody that's using the app. If you have a flash sale, you can send a notification about that as well. If anything that you have going on, if you guys have a huge event, if you've got a banner event for Thanksgiving, for example, send a couple of push notifications. Hey, our turkey trot's coming up, make sure you sign up. If you come into the store to sign up today, we'll give you an extra 10 points, and so on. It's this new notification button here and scheduling of notifications used carefully that's going to get that 10x to 300x engagement as compared to what you're doing and spending with email and social media. In other words, use the news, use the events, drive as many people to your app as you possibly can. Be creative with the way that you use notifications, and gentle. You can over notify, of course, and you don't want people to turn those notifications off. But if you dial those things in, you will see a substantial uptick from engagement from your customers, and your customers will use your app as the virtual storefront wherever they're standing, up to and including in your store. So to get the most out of your app, do those things. I took almost 24 minutes, a little bit longer than usual. I'm so sorry. Really appreciate you guys joining me today. If you would, please close the live chat, click like and subscribe so you get a notification. I will be back next Thursday at 1:30 Eastern to talk more about some best practices that we have. If you have any questions, please email us at hello@runfreeproject.com, or you could just go into your Run Free dashboard, click the little blue circle with the smiley, and send us a chat message. Most of you guys have done that before. We do answer you live and quickly, and we're happy to cover anything that you guys would like to see. Our goal is to make sure you're getting the most out of this platform. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Hopefully next